Hey everyone, start the second week of the Vendée Globe. I'm really thrilled today because I've got Mark Turner joining us. Mark founded OC Sports with Ellen and back in 2000 managed their hugely successful campaign for the Vendée where Ellen finished second. And then the team also managed Seb Josse's campaign with BT in 2008. So, huge amount of interest and knowledge and experience in this race. Mark went on to become the CEO of the Volvo Ocean Race, and I know is hugely passionate about sport and its ability to inspire people, and particularly young people. Let's bring him in. He's out in the green room at the moment.
Hey,
Good
Conrad.
morning. How you doing? Or good afternoon. It's lunchtime there in Switzerland.
Yep.
So
No,
yeah, I mean, a long time since we've spoken, but you've obviously, I'm sure, been following the Vendée pretty closely.
yeah, I was expecting to be at the start actually, but obviously the reason I was going to be there melted away with all of the restrictions, so missed the start for the first time since 1992. I think 96 was the first time I was there, so a bit disappointing. But I ended up doing the commentary for Swiss TV for the start in the studios in Geneva, so I was kind of there in some way or another. But
Good. So you've been obviously following it really closely. 20 years ago, we were saying you managed Ellen's campaign. How much do you think the Vendée has shaped your own career and Ellen's as well?
I think the Vendée kind of changes the life of everyone that's been involved in it one way or another. Anyone that's been involved in just one campaign, even I think, goes away changed in some way. Whether you're in the support team, whether you're the skipper, whether you're the sponsor. So it's a huge undertaking. Getting to the start line is generally a big part of the undertaking. So that impacts on you for sure, and you learn a lot. And then during the race, it's a roller coaster ride. However long it lasts, it's a roller coaster ride. So I think everyone's changed by it. We actually did 3 campaigns because we did Nick Moloney as well in 2004, and then Seb in 2008. So it's 3 sort of 12 years. 12 years, one way or another, the Vendée Globe was a big part of OC Sport and our lives for sure. And obviously, Ellen's campaign at the beginning was a huge game changer for us and for her, obviously, and for me, and for it's what launched us into a wider business that in the end ended up doing a lot more than just sailing.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned Nick and Seb Joss there. Great to see your old boat or that old boat, BT Sport, back in the race. In fact, I think perhaps both your boats are in the race currently.
No, we've got to do that Costa in with old Kingfisher as well. I think it's on its. I'll have the numbers wrong here, but I think it's her 8th round the world. I think with Barcelona World Race 7th or 8th, and obviously the old BT's done a pretty good job as well, including ultimately helping Alex Thompson kind of put things on a more solid footing after quite a few tricky campaigns for him. So his first successes actually were in that boat. So yeah, the boats are doing well, and the difference between the two boats is enormous as well in terms of Kingfisher was. I mean, now you'd say I was joking with Mervo and the designer the other day that perhaps we overbuilt her because she's going around a great time. But actually, we built the boat we needed to build for Ellen at the time, and it was it was competitive, obviously, at the time, but still a very, very different kind of margin of safety to perhaps the BT boat, which we had a few struggles with along the way. So, but she's still going. So it's a great mark of about this class that the boats can keep going. They may need a bit of rebuilding sometimes, but they do keep on going, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and they're putting in a strong performance. The Benjamin Dutroux in the BT boat. He's been in the top 3 for most of last week, and yeah, extraordinary performance for relatively newcomer to the race.
Yeah, it's been a particular start to the race, so I think it may not been would look very different if it had been a simpler exit from the Gulf de Gascogne and the Bay of Biscay. The fact it's been super complex, and there was a kind of big choice to make. Which, if you're a foiler, newer boat, you wanted to kind of go and make that choice out to the west, and if you weren't, then why take the risk, kind of thing. And that played very well for Le Cam and for Dutroux as well. So, and he's been sailing behind John Le Cam. There are worse places to be if you're going to follow follow someone. And so it's been great. It's great for the start of the race that you've seen the old boats be able to be at the front. And that's quite unusual, I think. And reality is, I don't think it's going to last, at least not the very old generation of boats that we're talking about there. Some of the newer, older ones, Kevin Escoffier and PRB and things, I think they have a chance to stay right at the top ultimately. But unfortunately, the next generation back, they're not going to survive some of the speed sections that are coming up.
Yeah. So 6 of the boats in the race skippered by women. And, when you were chief exec of the Volvo Ocean race, you were pretty instrumental in driving forward a rule that would encourage all the teams to take women on board. Are you surprised? Do you think it's made a difference?
I'm not sure I claim that the two are necessarily directly linked in terms of the Vendée Globe entry, but what's for sure is that you're talking about changing decades or more centuries of tradition or barriers for women and tradition of male sailors and everything else. So it will take time to change. And I think, whilst we took a fair bit of criticism, I'll share some of it one day perhaps, but, in the Volvo forcing the female crew position, the reality is without doing that kind of thing, some kind of positive discrimination, you can't get enough people with enough experience. And I think that kind of group of, of the last Volvo have gone off and are competing at the highest level in all sorts of different domains in the sport. And that's for the first time, really. And it didn't happen in the same way, I don't think, following all girl teams in the past, because they simply didn't get taken to the highest level. And so I'm proud of what we did. I wasn't there to see it all through, sadly, in that role, but it was a tough thing to put in place. Honestly, there was some pretty big pushback, but I have no regrets, and I hope that race will carry on doing that in the same way, and other races perhaps should be doing it too. There are other parts of the sport that I think should be doing that bit of positive discrimination, if you like, in order just to get a broader base of top level experience. There's no doubt there's an impact across the whole sport when you do that. It gives confidence to other skippers, female skippers perhaps, but probably more importantly also to the sponsors. Honestly, there is an anecdote which is worth sharing. At the beginning of the Kingfisher campaign, when we had done the route around with Ellen, we didn't have the Vendée Globe sponsorship signed, and we had a letter from the CEO who said, "Look, fantastic what we've done with the route to Rome, but I just can't take the responsibility to send a young girl to the Southern Ocean, and potentially die, and I can't do that." And we wrote a long letter back, which I'll summarise in one word, which was we wrote back saying, "Well, we're going anyway, and if we go without you, we won't go with the same safety levels and the same customized boat, so you're going to feel pretty bad if that happens anyway." So and they agreed, so and on we went. But there's still a lot of things stacked against female sailors for sure, in terms of finding the money, probably more than anything else, and it'll take a while and a few generations for that to change. But fantastic now to see 6 female skippers in this race. There's no question about it. It's a great step forward. What there isn't is a female skipper who's fully funded with a new boat. So there's still a long way to go.
Yeah. And 6 of those boats as well are also carrying environmental messages, as a core part of their campaign. What do you think are the opportunities for teams and sponsors to align their campaigns in this way?
Well, I think it is it's the new version of sports sponsorship, not just sailing, and a necessity really. I think you need to have more than just your sporting goals as a reason to be out there if you're going to take money off of people to help you get there. So for mechanical sports and non-mechanical sports, from a moral perspective, I think athletes, teams, events have to be doing more than simply doing what they love to do, and there's to be more to that purpose. And the same, as businesses are having to adjust as well in the same way, there needs to be more than just the kind of selfish gain, let's call it. You need to be doing something good with it, and that's a responsibility now. And the flip side of that is, I think sailing in particular has a great visual platform and a great level of emotion and communication capacity to use those campaigns to do much more than simply tell the story of what they're doing in a sailing perspective. And from a commercial perspective, I think there's a greater chance today of finding partners who are happy to be less visible behind a purpose which they agree with. And then in the end they get a better return. It's not about getting less, it's that actually they get a better return because the message hits home, engages, has a wider audience or a more engaged audience. So I think that's certainly the new way forward. There's a difficulty in finding causes and purposes which clear and really work. Just saying, I want to save the oceans, I'm not sure. I think that's kind of old version now. I'm not even sure you can really just do that now. Because the message gets lost. You've got to be a little bit more pointed in that and find a cause or a purpose which is going to have can be measured and you're having a real impact. But it's a great step forward, and I think that we'll just see that more and more. And it was an idea that we had would have been for the 2019 or 2020 Volvo that actually just insisted on it. The name of the boat would be the purpose in the campaign, and that was the rule. And actually try and just push the whole sport to that place, because it's clearly a place where the sport can have a big advantage.
Yeah. Well, certainly, seeing in other disciplines of the sport, say LGP and obviously the Volvo, it's a big focus. So great to see. Let's have a quick look at the last sort of 48 hours over the weekend, and maybe you can give some of your thoughts to the fleet.
Yeah, well, it's obviously that super complex start to the race. I think probably the most complex one I can remember. But now things have suddenly got actually quite simple, and the guys out the front are going to just be in a better place. And there's got a bit of order to it now, really. So other than John Le Cam and Dutroux hanging in there with very old boats, you've got what you expect right now, with some boats, 2 brand new boats already out of the race, or at least out of the race from a competitive point of view in the case of Charal. The race is simplified, has suddenly become super simplified. And obviously Alex is in a very strong and clear position as it stands right now today. But they're only 10% through the race, right, in terms of distance. So it's just the beginning.
Okay, so let's have a quick look at the routing. So this was a few hours ago. I'll stop it as we get through to the Doldrums, because normally the boats would be pushing south and perhaps almost as they come through the Doldrums pointing at Recife, trying to get lifted up round that corner. But at the moment the routing is looking like it wants to track down into the St Helena High and a fairly straightforward crossing of the Doldrums. I've got a little shot here of the satellite picture a few hours ago. It's the infrared picture. You can see how clear the weather forecast or the weather is over Cape Verdes, where they are at the moment, and not too active at Doldrums. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's been looking pretty good for Alex, to be honest. When Charal was going back, when Jeremy Bayer was heading back to Les Sables d'Olonne, I'm pretty sure he had in his head that in the Transat Jacques Vabre, when he was leading the race clearly and then lost it all in the Doldrums, he's thinking, okay, I've got to get back, I've got to repair, I've got to go back out there, because all these guys could get stopped for 2-3 days. And the reality is that it looks like it's not going to happen, which is pretty bad news for him. With any hopes he had of rejoining at least the mid part of the fleet in some way. Amazing. It's going to be amazing for Alex. And he's going to go straight down into the south. Obviously, what really matters next will be who gets on the first conveyor belt, first depression in the south, and who's with them. So Alex will get there first, potentially, as things stand. I mean, obviously, plenty of things can happen, but it's on equipment front, but it's a fairly steady routing, I'd say now. And the question is who will be with him on that first depression in terms of the battle going forward. And it will be hard to see any of the boats behind Alex on pure boat speed gaining all those miles. But let's see. Anything can happen. The Doldrums, sometimes the picture looks good, and then there's a little sail and you get stuck. And again, these boats travel 20 knots. We're talking about a few hours still. There's a difference. So the lead is there in distance, but in time, it's one big bad cloud, in the middle of the night, and you don't get yourself sorted quickly, and that could all change. So, but yeah, going to be a much easier Doldrums crossing for them by the look of it.
Just sort of scrolling through. So this is sort of Wednesday, and so it looks like the trades are really freshening up, and this obvious narrow band here, sort of right in the middle, looks like there should be very little downtime, but. Perhaps the good news for Charal is the South Atlantic is looking quite complicated further down track, and they may well be tackling that high pressure without a clear depression coming through.
Bayer can get back in there. I mean, he can be back in there. It's not out of the question, but I think there's still quite a depth of talent. We've just lost another boat this morning with dismasting of Coram, but there's still a lot of good boats there, new boats. And I think the best of the older boats, which for me would be Kevin Escoffier on PRB. I mean, he can easily be up there on the podium. The performance differences are there, but the strongest of the next generation back boats, make up for the difference with their other skills. In Kevin's case, he's a MacGyver; he can fix anything. So it would be interesting to see how it all pans out.
Brilliant. Well, as ever, Mark, it's great to catch up. I know you're busy; you've got to get off for another meeting, but it's been super to catch up with you, and be great to see you again later on down the course, perhaps when they're getting into the south.
Definitely.
But thanks very much, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Cheers. Take care.
Okay, so thanks very much, everyone. That was Mark Turner. He has certainly been very involved with the Vendée Globe for many editions, and a huge amount of experience with campaigns. If you've enjoyed this, then please do subscribe, and we've got some great guests coming up this week with Dee Caffari joining tomorrow, and then later in the week we've got the designer of Kingfisher, Owen Clark, Mervyn Owen, joining us from San Francisco. So look forward to tomorrow. See you soon. Bye.